Now, I'm going to start with a story tonight. It's a difficult subject. I'm going to start with a story tonight, and the story is actually of my own self and some opinions that I used to have about the Quran. I was born in a Muslim family. Many of you know my story. I was born in a Muslim family, but a very average Pakistani Muslim family, which basically means that we did not take the religion all too seriously. I never learned Arabic, I never learned Tajweed, I never learned to memorize Quran exhaustively or anything like that. We learned enough. We learned a couple of surahs of the Quran as children. Some of my schooling was actually in Saudi. I was born in Germany, so my early kindergarten schooling was in German, in the German language. I didn't speak anything else except German, which sounds weird, because I don't speak any German now. But anyway, so I learned later on, I learned Urdu from 2nd grade to 8th grade. I was in Saudi, but I went to a Pakistani school, which is awesome. So I learned a lot of Urdu. Right? And then I came to, in high school, I came to the United States. But by the time I was in the United States, I basically had no reason to take my religion seriously. As a teenager living in Queens, nobody around me, of all of my friends, maybe one guy was a Muslim. And that's not I only know he was Muslim because his name was Atif, not because of anything else. You don't act Muslim in high school in New York City. You just don't do it, And so in that age, I reflect back at that time and my years in college, and I think about what did I used to think about Islam at that time. And the first answer I have in my head is I did not think about Islam at that time. I didn't think much about it. But if I did think about it, here are 3 things I used to think. I'm going to start with these 3 things, and I'd like you to remember these 3 things. The first thing I used to think was Islam is irrelevant. It does not have solutions for my problems right now. Every time I hear a khutbah, every time I hear a lecture, they talk about something amazing that happened a long time ago. And they never tell you anything good happening when? Right now. Only bad things are happening right now. And all the good things happened a long time ago. And so they keep telling me this, that the time of the prophets was great. The time of the Sahaba was awesome. We used to be so amazing, but now we are just a bunch of munafiqun and we're just all going to go burn in hell, and all of you are sinning. And so you know what? I accept. You know what? At that time I said, fine. Good times are over. These are the bad times. So therefore this religion has nothing to offer me for right now. And as a matter of fact, every time people would talk about Islam, they would tell me how, and this is, by the way, not coming from someone who's wanting to learn deen. I would go to Jumu'ah because my dad would drag me to Jumu'ah. I don't want to go to Jumu'ah. He would drag me there. And I'm sitting there like, when is this over? Some of the best sleep of my life was during Jumu'ah. The only thing that woke me up was Aqim as-salat. That's the only thing that woke me up. But before I passed out, the few things I would hear about how things that are happening right now, most of those things are haram. And how most of your life you are just in disobedience to Allah. And the only way you can survive is you have to try to live like people lived more than 1,000 years ago. You have to become an ancient person. You cannot be a modern person. So I developed the opinion in my head that this religion is for people who want to pretend that they are living more than 1,000 years ago. This is not for people who live in 2015 or at that time 1997. This is not for those people. That was the first opinion I had, that this religion is irrelevant. It's outdated. It's expired. The second opinion, and by the way, this is an attitude from a Muslim or a non-Muslim? This is actually an attitude from a Muslim. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone, and I wasn't alone then. Millions of Muslims used to think like this, and they still think like this. And the second attitude was that this religion is harsh. It's harsh. Chances are you are doing something wrong, and chances are you are going to go to hellfire. Actually, the chances that you will go to hellfire are 99.999999999%. And maybe you might make it to Jannah. Most of the time what I heard was, I am in trouble and Allah is angry with me. That's what I heard most of the time. Every time I do something, there is something wrong with it Islamically. Something is wrong with it. And as a matter of fact, at that time, I used to be really scared of people that had beards. Because people that I knew that had a beard, they don't smile. They look at you like, oh my God, this guy. The more Islamic you get, the more angry you get at the world. So I used to be scared of those people. Man, I was scared. And as a matter of fact, even when I was in college, I'm sitting there I'm eating my pizza in New York City, sitting in a restaurant eating pizza, and a guy with a beard walks in. I'm like, oh man, I was trying to have a pizza. This guy ruining my lunch. He's probably gonna give me a lecture about how I'm going to hell again or something. I used to be really scared of these people, really scared of them. This was the second opinion that I developed. The first one, that it's irrelevant, and the second, that it's harsh. That the people that follow this religion, they are very mean. They're not nice people. And they judge you. And they tell you that you're bad. And that they're better than you. That's the second one. And here's the third one. The third opinion I developed was, okay, you know what? Let me just maybe I shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Maybe I should not judge Islam because of Muslims. Maybe I shouldn't listen to just what the khatib says or what these people do and how they behave. I should try to figure the religion out for myself. So I'm going to read the Quran by myself. And I'm going to figure it out by myself because I don't trust these people. So I'm going to read the Quran by myself. Do I know Arabic? No. So I'm going to read a translation. And so I decide to read a translation, and what do I find? I find confusion. I find confusion because some ayat in the beginning are talking about something, and then they're talking about something else, and then they're talking about something else, and something else, and something else. I've never read any book like this. When I read a book, I start in chapter 1 and it makes sense, and then the chapter 2 builds on chapter 1, and chapter 3 builds on chapters 1 and 2, and it goes in an order. But the Quran doesn't work like that. The Quran has takrar, it has repetition. Allah will say something here, then He'll say something again, and He'll say it again, and He'll say it again. So I don't seem to understand how this book is organized. It doesn't make any sense. And then sometimes I read some things and they completely don't make any sense. Alif, Lam, Mim. And I'm saying to myself, how does this make any sense? I don't understand. So you know what that is? The first opinion was what? Let me see if you're still alive. What was the first opinion I developed? It's irrelevant. And the second opinion? It's harsh. And the third one is a combination of two things. It's confusing, and it's unimpressive. It's not impressive. What's the big deal? I read the Quran. I don't understand why we're so amazed by this book. How could this be impressive? Now, if you have these three opinions, then this is more than enough for you to not want to have anything to do with Islam. More than enough. And for a lot of people that I've met all over the world, they have these same exact three opinions. Same exact three opinions. And they say, well, I don't want anything to do with religion because it's harsh, because it's irrelevant. What am I going to learn from the story of this prophet or that prophet? That happened so long ago. We're living in 2015 right now. One guy even told me, if the Quran came down today, it would have been different. It would have been related to our time. So it was related at that time. It has to do with old times. Asatirul awwaleen, that's good enough. But right now we have to live our life, We have to move forward. We can't think backwards. So they think thinking about Islam is like thinking backwards. Now before I go on, the first half of my talk is to explain the problem. I just want to explain the problem. And the first problem was in my head. And I blame myself, but I also blame the ummah. You guys understand marketing, right? If you love Kit Kat, because I love Kit Kat, Kit Kat has done a really good job marketing itself. Right? So when you think, even if you haven't had a Kit Kat, when you think, give me a break with a Kit Kat bar. You go straight for it. They've done a good job marketing themselves. Islam, the Muslims, the Ummah, hasn't even done a good job marketing Islam to the Muslims themselves. If a Muslim himself, if a Muslimah herself has a negative opinion of Islam, that means we did not do a good job presenting Islam. That's what that means. Something is missing. Something is very wrong. Now let's take the problem a little further. Allah Azza wa Jalla, and all of this I want to share with you before I get to the next part. All of this is inspired by one ayah of Surah An-Nahl. يقول سبحانه وتعالى ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. Allah says, call people, invite to the way of your Rabb, the path of your master. I will be explaining this ayah today. It's going to take me a long time. I'm already letting you know. I'm not going to give you, I only have 5 minutes left. Forget it. It's going to be a long night. Okay, just letting you know. Okay? So that nobody's like mentally prepared. It's starting at 9. Maybe he'll make it short. I won't make it short. I'm not going to make it short. This is going to be long and boring. Yeah. Okay. So now, he says, call to the way of your Rabb with hikmah. Anyone know what hikmah means? Call it out. Here's a hint. Wisdom. Yeah, very good. Hikmah means what? Wisdom. My argument today is most of the time we talk about Islam without wisdom. And when we don't use wisdom, instead of bringing people closer to Islam, what do we end up doing? Pushing them further away from Islam.